Thank you for joining us. The U.S., Israel, and Iran are insisting they're prepared to keep the fight going as the war enters a third week. More than 1,300 people have been killed, and the global economy is starting to feel the impact. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says it's launched a new wave of strikes on Israel. Rescuers have been clearing rubble after debris started a fire in Holon in central Israel. Loud explosions have been seen in Tehran throughout the day. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has promised the highest volume of strikes on Friday.
The United States is decimating the radical Iranian regime's military in a way the world has never seen before. Never before has a modern, capable military, which Iran used to have, been so quickly destroyed and made combat ineffective, devastated. We said it would not be a fair fight, and it has not been.
Some of those strikes threatened rallies led by top officials in Tehran. At least one woman was killed by shrapnel, according to Iranian state media. And in the last hour, Tawhid Asadi has been out with those marching.
For the third time in the past week, people have gathered in downtown Tehran at Enqelab Square, this time for Quds Day, an annual event to express support to Palestinians and also opposition to Israeli occupation. The event was first initiated in 1979 by Iran's then Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, and since then it has been observed every year in Iran and in several other countries. But this year, the situation is totally different. Over the past 2 weeks, Iran has been hit by a sustained campaign of airstrikes carried out by Israel and the United States. On the very first day of those attacks, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed alongside several senior military commanders, an event that dramatically raised the stakes. Since then, waves of strikes have left a trail of damage and destruction, even in many civilian areas. Red Crescent says 20,000 residential units have been partially damaged or fully destroyed, and the human toll continues to mount as war goes on. The escalation comes after another round of war Israel started 9 months ago back in June, followed by a period of increasingly heated rhetoric between Tehran and Tel Aviv. All of that is now fitting into the atmosphere here today. Emotions are clearly high as we speak to people.
Oppression always comes to an end. Injustice will disappear. God willing, we'll stay here until Israel is destroyed. We stand behind our leader. We've come to pledge allegiance to him.
And the demonstration happens as the airstrikes go on.
We are the nation of Imam Hussein, and we are here to show this. They think that by killing us we will be afraid, that by dropping bombs on our heads we will be afraid. No, we stand by our country.
The proud people of Iran have shown the oppressive and arrogant powers of the world that the wall of oppression can be broken. Today, with their presence in different squares, the people showed that it is possible to overcome injustice and break the wall of oppression.
For many in this crowd, this event is no longer just about expression of support for Palestinians, but also a show of defiance and resilience here at home. Tawhid Asadi, Al Jazeera, Tehran.
Our correspondents are following all the latest developments from Beirut, Amman, Doha, Washington, D.C., and in Tehran. Mohammed Val is in the Iranian capital for us. Mohammed, you have been reporting that in the last hour, there have been some of the loudest blasts you have heard yet in this campaign. Tell us what you've seen and what you've heard.
Well, that's right, Riley. Some of the loudest and also the closest to our the location of our office. That's something we have been eyewitnesses to. Blasts, a couple of blasts on a building that is just a few hundred kilometers away, a few hundred meters away from our office. The entire area has been shaken by these blasts. We understand it's a couple of rockets that targeted a building, and a religious endowment building that is empty at the moment, according to the information that we have. And it is very close to a civilian hospital. Probably that hospital has been impacted, according to the estimates. People who have been around the place say that hospital must be impacted because it's very close to that place. And that happened just when rallies were resuming in the streets here in Tehran, because that's a daily occurrence. So there was a mixture of that bombardment and also that scene of defiance in the streets. The streets around the blast area were blocked by the security forces, but there was a lot of movement because this place is one of the most crowded places in Tehran, and that gives you an indication of the direction of these bombardments in the last few days. Tehran has taken the most of those bombardments, and they have been closer and closer to civilian facilities and civilian buildings. Tehran has seen a lot of that during the day and also yesterday, but also other cities have taken a share of the bombardment, including Karaj to the west, Isfahan to the center, and also the island of Kish. So, I mean, it's a relentless campaign against Tehran. We don't know exactly the targets that have been hit overnight, except the one I told you about. But the Israelis and the Americans are saying that they are after military and security institutions and buildings. But the civilians here and the authorities are talking about schools, talking about hospitals, talking about just streets, because over the last couple of days, drones were used to strike against checkpoints in the streets. And that's something that the civilians here are very much afraid of, because it might really cause more civilians killing in this campaign.
Mohammed, I want to bring John Holman in, who's joining us now from Washington, D.C., because as the Pentagon says that the strikes on Tehran are going to intensify, John, we're also hearing reports out of U.S. media that more military assets may be on the way to the region. What can you tell us about those reports?
Yeah, Riley, the reports dealing with a quite specific sort of military asset, actually. There's been a couple of them that have come out in US media saying that a ship called the USS Tripoli, which is an amphibious assault ship, has been ordered, it's been approved by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth that it can head towards the Middle East. And it's got 2,000, together with a group of about 2,500 Marines. At the moment, these are just US media reports. We've obviously asked the Pentagon this ourselves, and we got this from a defense official. We'll not speculate on future troop movements or force posture to protect operational security. But I've been speaking to a military expert here about what this means if this ship is heading towards the Middle East. And the important thing about the ship is that it is an amphibious assault ship, which means that it can deploy troops, aircraft, landing craft from sea onto land during military operations. So it's got Marines inside it, and it could land those Marines. So obviously this is giving it another option to President Trump's administration and the war effort in Iran, this effort going into this campaign, this conflict, if this is true and it's heading there. One of the problems with the Strait of Hormuz is not just the mines and things like that, but the fact that missiles can be fired at ships. And we've heard that this is happening already, that projectiles have been fired on ships. And that's been how a couple of them have been hit. Just speaking to military experts, they said that one thing that you could at least stop those missiles, short-range missiles being deployed and being launched, is by having a ground force on the Iranian side of that strait. We're all just talking here, obviously, about possible scenarios at the present, but we'll update you as soon as we can, as soon as we can get that confirmed that that ship is on the way.
Okay, in the meantime, I want to go back to Mohammed Val, who is in Tehran for us. And while we were listening to the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth earlier talk about having Iran on the run, we saw many of the leadership in Iran, Mohammed, out at rallies, out in those bombings, including the president there. Are Iranians seeing this as a defiant act, or how is that being viewed?
Exactly, Riley. The presence of the president and the foreign minister and many other high top-ranking leaders in the country in the rally today was a message of defiance. And to say to the Americans and the Israelis that the leaders, contrary to what the American Minister of War has been, Secretary of War has been, as they call him, has been saying that they are hiding like riots, they are in the streets. They were in the streets today, and they were talking to the media. And at the same time, thousands and millions even of protesters, of people who are supporters, to the government, were also across the country, not only in Tehran, but also in other cities. It is Al-Quds Day. It is a day of solidarity with the Palestinians. And the fact that in the middle of the crisis here, in the middle of bombardment, and when bombs are falling right and left, the Iranians haven't forgotten the number one priority for the Islamic Revolution, which is support to Palestine. Many people here are saying that most of the problems that Iran is undergoing are because of its support to the Palestinians, and because Israel sees Iran as the one country that is defying the existence and the hegemony and the dominance of Israel in the region. So they stuck to that principle and went out in there, and turned out in there thousands and even millions, if we count all the people who took to the streets today to support Palestine at a time when they themselves are under bombardment and need support. Also, the leaders being there is, as we said, a message of defiance and a way to contradict and a way to say that the Americans are lying, and that the Iranians, particularly the leadership, are not afraid and are going to be among their people and to continue to defy and defend the country.
And John, back to you in Washington. We keep hearing from Democrats, certainly, that the private briefings that they're getting on Capitol Hill are not answering their questions. But are the continued press conferences by the administration, by the Secretary of Defense, moving the needle when it comes to how the public stands on this war?
Well, a recent Reuters Ipsos poll said that more people now felt that they had heard about what was going on. They were hearing more about this conflict. 64% of people, though, felt that they still hadn't had the objectives, what the United States is going after, clearly explained to them. The amount of people that actually approve and disapprove of President Trump's administration's military actions against Iran seems to have more or less stayed the same since the start of this conflict. 29% of people approved, 43% disapproved. This same poll from Reuters Ipsos was done almost at the start of the conflict and had the same sort of stats. So public opinion seems to be holding steady. This is not a popular conflict, but it's not one that's unanimously disapproved of. And it seems to go a lot among party lines. Republicans are approving of what President Trump's doing, and Democrats are disapproving, predictably, of what President Trump's saying. With independents, according to this poll, slightly more of them approving at 23% than the 19% of people at the start. So there's some poll numbers for you, but there is another one that's important here from the same poll that says 2/3 of people said they expect gas prices to get worse over the next year. That's also important, isn't it, in terms of public support towards this action? If the Strait of Hormuz continues to be blocked, and the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said, don't worry, we're dealing with that we won't allow it to remain uncontested, then obviously gas prices will go up in terms of the international energy world, and that will also have an impact on whether the public approves of this or not, an opinion.
Certainly will. John Holman in Washington, D.C., thank you, and also our thanks to Mohammed Val in Tehran.